The diner smelled like burnt coffee and broken dreams at 2 a.m. I wiped down the same sticky counter for the third time, my shoulders aching from a double shift that had stretched into something resembling torture. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting everything in a sickly yellow glow that made my reflection in the chrome napkin dispenser look like a ghost. Maybe I was a ghost. Maybe I'd died somewhere between my 6th customer and my 16th, and this was purgatory, an endless loop of refilling ketchup bottles and pretending to smile at men who snapped their fingers at me like I was a dog. "Table 4 needs more coffee," Brenda barked from the kitchen window, her cigarette-roughened voice cutting through the hum of the ancient refrigerator. I grabbed the pot, feeling the heat seep through the handle into my already raw palm. My feet screamed in protest with each step, the hole in my left shoe letting the cold floor tile kiss my skin through my threadbare sock. Rent was due in 3 days. I had $47 to my name. The math didn't work, no matter how many times I recalculated it in my head during the slow hours. Table 4 was empty now. The businessman who'd been nursing his black coffee for an hour had finally left, probably headed to whatever warm bed and comfortable life waited for him. I envied him that. The envying made me feel small, but I was too tired to feel ashamed of it. I started clearing his cup and saucer, mechanically wiping crumbs into my palm when I saw it. A wallet. Black leather. Expensive looking even to my untrained eye. The kind of leather that probably cost more than my monthly rent. It sat there on the red vinyl booth seat like it had been waiting for me. Like some kind of test from a universe that had never been particularly kind. My first instinct was to call out, to run after the man. But the bell above the door had chimed its goodbye 10 minutes ago. He was long gone. My second instinct, the one I hated myself for, was to look inside, just to see, just to know what kind of money lived in a wallet like that. I picked it up. Heavy. Real. The leather was soft against my fingertips, still warm from his body heat. I shouldn't have opened it. I knew I shouldn't have. But my hands moved anyway, driven by something between curiosity and desperation, and suddenly I was staring at more cash than I'd seen in my entire life. Crisp $100 bills, stacked thick, at least 20 of them, maybe more. My breath caught in my throat. $2,000, maybe 3. Enough to pay rent, enough to fix my car, enough to stop the constant churning anxiety that had taken up permanent residence in my chest. I closed it quickly, my heart hammering against my ribs. No. I wasn't that person. I couldn't be that person. My mama had raised me better than that, even if she'd left me worse off in almost every other way. The wallet had an ID card visible through the clear plastic window. I hadn't looked at it closely, hadn't wanted to put a face to the temptation. But there was a phone number on a business card tucked behind it. I'd call. I'd return it. I'd do the right thing, even if the right thing had never once done right by me. "You coming back sometime this century?" Brenda's voice yanked me back to reality. I shoved the wallet into my apron pocket and grabbed the coffee pot, forcing my expression into something neutral. "Yeah, sorry." The rest of my shift crawled by. Every time I moved, I felt the weight of that wallet against my hip, a constant reminder of roads not taken. By the time I clocked out at 6 a.m., the sun was just starting to bruise the horizon with streaks of pink and gold. Beautiful. If you had the energy to appreciate beauty. I didn't. My apartment was a 4th-floor walk-up in a building that should have been condemned a decade ago. The stairs creaked under my weight, and somewhere below me, a baby was crying. It was always crying, that baby. Like it knew something the rest of us had forgotten about how unfair the world was. I dropped my keys twice before I managed to unlock the door. Inside, the radiator clanked and hissed, providing just enough heat to keep the place hovering above freezing. My studio apartment was exactly large enough for a bed, a hot plate, and the crushing weight of my failures. I'd tried to make it home. A thrifted blanket here, a plant there, now dead. But poverty had a way of making everything look temporary. I pulled the wallet from my apron and set it on the rickety folding table that served as my dining room, office, and general life headquarters. Under the weak light of my single lamp, I could finally look at it properly. The ID card showed a man's face. Even in the small photo, even through the scratched plastic, I could tell he was handsome, sharp jawline, dark eyes that seemed to look through the camera rather than at it. The name read, Dante Moretti. The address was in the hills, the part of the city where people like me only went to clean houses or serve canapes at parties. The business card behind it was simple. Expensive cardstock, black with silver lettering, just a name and a phone number, no business name, no title. Like he didn't need to explain who he was. I should have called right away. I should have dialed that number the moment I got home. Instead, I made instant coffee with water I boiled on the hot plate and sat staring at that wallet for 20 minutes, turning it over in my hands like it might reveal some secret about how people got to live the kind of life where losing $2,000 was just an inconvenience. Finally, I picked up my phone, a cracked screen piece of garbage that I'd had for 4 years, and dialed before I could talk myself out of it. It rang once, twice. On the third ring, a voice answered. Who is this? Not hello. Not Dante Moretti speaking, just a demand, cold and sharp enough to cut. My voice came out smaller than I wanted it to. Hi, I found a wallet at the diner where I work. I think it belongs to... Where are you? It wasn't a question. I blinked, thrown off by the interruption. I'm at home, What diner? Sam's Diner, on 5th and I know where it is. A pause. I could hear something in the background. Voices, maybe, or traffic. You have
The
it
wallet.
with you. Yes, Don't touch anything else inside it. Don't open it again. Do you understand? The authority in his voice made me straighten up even though he couldn't see me. I already opened it. To find your number. I didn't take anything. Your name. What? Your name, he repeated, each word deliberate and heavy. Elena. Elena Torres. Silence. Long enough that I thought he might have hung up. Then, someone will come for it. Don't go anywhere. The line went dead. I stared at my phone, my heart racing for reasons I couldn't quite name. The conversation had lasted maybe 60 seconds, but I felt like I'd just been interrogated. Or warned, or both. Someone will come for it. I looked down at the wallet in my lap. For the first time, a cold finger of unease traced down my spine. What kind of man talked like that? What kind of man had people to send to retrieve things for him at 6:30 in the morning? I set the wallet on the table like it might bite me and went to take a shower, letting the weak stream of lukewarm water wash away the diner smell and the bone-deep exhaustion. But it couldn't wash away the feeling that I'd just made a terrible mistake, not in finding the wallet, in calling to return it. I'd just put myself on the radar of someone who shouldn't even know people like me existed. I'd opened a door I didn't know how to close. And as I stood there in my falling-apart bathroom, water dripping from my hair onto my shoulders, I felt the first real tremor of fear. The wallet sat on my table like a loaded gun, and I'd just pulled the trigger. The knock came exactly 43 minutes later. I'd gotten dressed in the meantime, my least damaged jeans and a sweater that had only 2 small holes, both hidden under the arms where no one would see. I'd even tried to do something with my hair, pulling it back into a ponytail that made me look slightly less like I'd been awake for 24 hours straight. I don't know why I bothered. Vanity, maybe. Or the instinct that told me I needed whatever armor I could manage, even if that armor was just clean clothes and brushed hair. The knock was firm, professional. Not the banging of a landlord or the hesitant tap of a neighbor. 3 sharp raps that somehow conveyed both patience and the promise that patience wouldn't last forever. I picked up the wallet and went to the door, looking through the peephole first. 2 men stood in the hallway. Both wore dark suits that probably cost more than my car, back when my car had run anyway. The one in front was older, maybe 50, with silver at his temples and the kind of posture that spoke of military training. The one behind him was younger, broader, with a scar cutting through his left eyebrow that gave him a permanent expression of skepticism. I opened the door, but kept the chain on. Hi, you're here for the wallet? The older man's eyes flicked from my face to the chain to something over my shoulder, cataloging everything in a single sweep. Miss Torres. May we come in? I can just give it to you here. I held up the wallet, trying to keep my hand from shaking. Mr. Moretti would prefer to speak with you himself. He's downstairs. My stomach dropped. He's... What? He wanted to thank you personally for your honesty. The words were polite, but something in the way he said them made them sound like a summons rather than an invitation. I looked past them to the stairwell. I didn't need a personal thank you. I was just doing the right thing. Nevertheless, the older man's expression didn't change. He's waiting. Every instinct I had screamed at me to shut the door, to throw the wallet at them and pretend this had never happened. But something else, curiosity maybe, or the kind of self-destructive impulse that had shaped most of my bad decisions, made me nod. Okay, just let me get my shoes. I closed the door, my hands trembling as I shoved my feet into my sneakers. The wallet sat on the table, and for one wild moment, I considered climbing out the fire escape. But that was crazy. I was returning something I'd found. That was all. There was no reason to be afraid, except for the cold voice on the phone. The men in expensive suits, the way they'd known exactly where I lived without me telling them. I grabbed my jacket and the wallet, took a breath that did nothing to steady my nerves, and opened the door. The men led me downstairs in silence. The one with the scar walked behind me, and I could feel his presence like a hand on my back, guiding me forward even though he never touched me. The older one moved ahead, clearing the path, though there was no one to clear it from at this hour on a Sunday morning. When we reached the ground floor, the front door opened onto a street that looked different than it had when I'd come home. A black SUV was parked directly in front of the building, sleek and enormous, its windows tinted so dark I couldn't see inside. It was the kind of vehicle that cost more than most people made in a year, maybe several years. The older man opened the rear passenger door. "Miss Torres," he said, gesturing for me to look inside. I leaned down slightly, and my breath caught. He sat in the back seat like he owned the entire world, and was just deciding whether to keep it or burn it down. Dante Moretti in person was nothing like his ID photo. That had been a ghost of the real thing. A shadow. This was the substance. He couldn't have been much older than 30, but he wore power like men twice his age never managed. Dark hair pushed back from his face, a jawline that could cut glass. But it was his eyes that stopped me, dark, almost black, and fixed on me with an intensity that made me feel like I was being X-rayed, catalogued, assessed, and found wanting all in the space of a heartbeat. He wore a black suit, white shirt, no tie. Even sitting down, I could tell he was tall, expensive watch on his wrist catching the morning light. The interior of the SUV smelled like leather and something else. Cologne, maybe. Cedar and something darker, more dangerous. "Miss Torres." His voice was the same one from the phone, but richer in person, textured with an accent I couldn't quite place. "Please, sit." It wasn't a request. I climbed into the SUV on shaking legs, acutely aware of how out of place I was. My thrifted jacket, my worn sneakers, the hole in my sock that I prayed he couldn't see. The older man closed the door behind me, and suddenly I was sealed in with Dante Moretti, separated from the driver by a privacy partition that was already up. The space felt smaller than it should have. He took up all the air. The wallet. I managed, holding it out like a shield. He took it from me, his fingers brushing mine for just a second. His skin was warm. I pulled my hand back like I'd been burned. He opened the wallet, checking the contents with quick efficiency. The cash was all there. I saw his eyes flick to it, count it without counting it. Then he pulled out a $100 bill and held it out to me. "For your trouble." I stared at the money. $100. More than I made in a full shift at the diner. I don't want a reward. I just wanted to return it. Take it. Really, Elena. The way he said my name made my spine straighten. "You worked a double shift last night. You're wearing shoes with holes in them. Your phone screen is cracked. Take the money." Heat flooded my face. He'd noticed. Of course he'd noticed. Men like him noticed everything, filed it away, used it later. "How do you know about my shift?" I called the diner, asked about the girl who was working last night. "They told me about you." He was still holding out the bill. "Take it. Or I'll have Marco put it in your jacket pocket, and that seems unnecessarily familiar for people who just met." I took the money. My pride wanted to refuse, but my empty bank account and my landlord's looming deadline were louder than my pride. "Thank you." He nodded once, satisfied. Then he studied me with those dark eyes, and I felt like a butterfly pinned to a board. You could have taken the cash. No one would have known. I would have known. Honesty is rare. He said it like he was diagnosing a disease. Especially in this city. I didn't know what to say to that, so I said nothing. The silence stretched between us, heavy and strange. I should have left. I should have thanked him again, and climbed out of this expensive car, and gone back to my expensive apartment to pretend this had never happened. But I didn't move, and he didn't tell me to go. "Where are you from?" he asked finally. "Your accent. Torres is Spanish, but you sound—" "My mom was from Mexico. She came here when she was 17. I don't know why I told him. Maybe because he was looking at me like I was a puzzle he wanted to solve. "She died when I was 15. And your father?" "Never met him." The old wound barely hurt anymore. I'd picked at it so many times it had scarred over into numbness. He nodded slowly, like I'd confirmed something he'd already guessed. "You're alone." It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. "Yeah." "That's dangerous. For a girl like you." Something in his tone made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. "A girl like me? Beautiful, honest, vulnerable." He said each word like he was tasting it. The kind of girl people take advantage of. I should have been flattered. I should have blushed and stammered and felt special that someone who looked like him thought I was beautiful, but instead, I felt afraid. Because the way he said it didn't sound like a compliment. It sounded like a threat, or a promise. "I should go," I said, reaching for the door handle. His hand shot out, not touching me, just resting on the seat between us, and I froze. "What's your phone number, Elena?" "Why?" "Because I want to call you, take you to dinner, thank you properly for your honesty." My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. "You just thanked me, with the $100. That was insufficient." He pulled out his phone, sleek and expensive. "Your number." Every rational part of my brain screamed at me to refuse, to get out of this car, go back to my sad little apartment, and forget this ever happened. Men like Dante Moretti didn't take girls like me to dinner, and if they did, it wasn't for any good reason. But I heard myself saying the numbers anyway. Heard him typing them into his phone. Heard the soft chime as he saved my contact information. "I'll call you tomorrow," he said. Then he leaned forward slightly, and I caught that scent again. Cedar and danger and something that made my stomach flip. "Don't ignore it when I do." It was a command dressed up as a request. The door opened. Marco, I guessed, the older man. And I practically fell out of the SUV in my haste to escape. My legs felt weak. My hands were shaking. I stumbled back toward my building without looking behind me, feeling his eyes on me every step of the way. I didn't breathe properly until I was back in my apartment with the door locked and chained behind me. The $100 bill was clutched in my fist, damp with sweat. I smoothed it out on my table and stared at it like it might explain what had just happened. A beautiful, dangerous man had my phone number, and I'd given it to him willingly. I'd just made my second mistake in 12 hours. And somehow, I knew it wouldn't be my last. He called at exactly 8 p.m. the next day. I'd spent the hours in between convincing myself it wouldn't happen. Men like Dante Moretti didn't actually follow through on dinner invitations to waitresses from broken-down diners. That whole encounter had probably been a fever dream brought on by exhaustion and desperation. I'd probably imagined the intensity in his eyes, the command in his voice, the way the air had felt charged and dangerous in that SUV. But when my phone rang, and I saw the unfamiliar number, I knew. My hand hovered over the screen for 3 rings. 4. On the 5th, I answered, "Elena." Not a question. He knew it was me. "Hi." My voice came out breathier than I wanted. "Tomorrow night, 8 o'clock. "Wear something nice." I should have said no. Should have told him I had to work, had other plans, had literally anything else to do besides have dinner with a man who looked at me like I was something to be collected. But my mouth moved without consulting my brain. "I don't have anything nice." Silence. Then, "What size are you?" "What?" "Clothing size, dress size." Heat crept up my neck. "Why would you—" "Answer the question, Elena." That voice again. Soft but absolute. 6. Sometimes 8, depending on the brand. I felt stripped bare just saying it, like I was giving him ammunition I didn't understand yet. Good. A car will pick you up at 7:30. Be ready. I didn't say yes. You didn't say no. I could hear the smile in his voice, predatory and pleased. 7:30. Don't make me wait. He hung up. I stared at my phone, my heart hammering. What had I just agreed to? What was I doing? The next morning, I woke to someone knocking on my door. When I opened it, chain on, always the chain on, a delivery man stood there with 3 large boxes, each one marked with the logo of a boutique I'd only ever seen from the outside, the kind of place where they probably asked you to leave if you looked too poor. Elena Torres? I nodded. Mute. Sign here, please. I signed. He left. I brought the boxes inside with shaking hands. The first box contained a dress. Black, simple, but the kind of simple that cost more than my monthly rent. Silk that felt like water between my fingers. The label inside was Italian, designer, the kind of thing I'd only ever seen on mannequins in windows I couldn't afford to breathe on. The second box held shoes, heels, black, elegant, my exact size. How did he know my shoe size? The third box made my breath catch. Lingerie, black lace, delicate and expensive and entirely inappropriate for a first date with a man I barely knew. A note was tucked inside, written in bold, slashing handwriting. Wear it all. D. I should have packed everything back up, should have refused delivery, should have called him and told him I wasn't some doll he could dress up and play with. Instead, I spent 3 hours getting ready. I showered until my skin was pink and raw, shaved everything twice, moisturized with the tiny bottle of lotion I'd been saving for special occasions. I'd never had a special occasion before. I put on the lingerie first, feeling the lace against my skin like a secret, like a promise I wasn't sure I wanted to keep. Then the dress, which fit perfectly, too perfectly. He'd somehow known my exact measurements, and that should have terrified me more than it did. The shoes transformed my posture, made me stand straighter, walk differently. I barely recognized myself in the cracked mirror above my sink. At 7:30 exactly, my phone buzzed. Downstairs. I grabbed my jacket, my awful, threadbare jacket that completely ruined the effect of the dress, and headed down. The SUV was the same one from yesterday. Marco stood beside the rear door, his expression professionally neutral. He opened it for me without a word. Dante sat in the back, and when he saw me, something flickered across his face. Satisfaction, maybe, or possession. Take off the jacket, he said as soon as Marco closed the door. It's cold. The car is warm. Take it off. I shrugged out of it, feeling exposed. His eyes traveled over me slowly, deliberately, taking in every inch of the dress on my body. I'd never been looked at like that before, like I was art, or prey, or both. Perfect, he murmured. Then louder, you look beautiful. Thank you for the dress. You didn't have to. I know I didn't have to. I wanted to. He reached across the seat, and I thought he was going to touch me, but instead he picked up a small velvet box from the seat beside him. One more thing. He opened it. Inside was a necklace, a simple silver chain with a small diamond pendant. Not ostentatious, but clearly expensive. Real. I can't accept that. You can. You will. He pulled it from the box. Turn around. Dante, turn around. I turned. I felt his hands on my neck, warm and sure, fastening the clasp. His fingers brushed the nape of my neck, and I shivered despite myself. The pendant settled against my collarbone, cool and foreign. There, he said softly, close enough that I felt his breath on my shoulder. Now you're perfect. The restaurant was in a part of the city I'd only ever driven through, never stopped in, the kind of place where valet parking was standard, and the doorman wore a uniform that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe used to before Dante had replaced it. Inside, it was all soft lighting and murmured conversations, white tablecloths and crystal glasses. The maitre d' saw Dante and immediately led us to a private corner table, away from everyone else. I noticed how other diners looked at him. Recognition mixed with something else. Fear? Respect? Both? We sat. A waiter appeared instantly, pouring water, offering wine. Dante ordered for both of us without asking what I wanted. I should have been annoyed. Instead, I felt relieved. I had no idea what half the things on the menu were anyway. "You're nervous," Dante observed once we were alone. "I've never been anywhere like this, I know." He said it gently, but it still felt like he was cataloging my inadequacies. "Tell me about yourself, Elena. Everything." "There's not much to tell. I doubt that." So I told him. About my mother, her death, the years in foster care afterward. About aging out of the system at 18 with nothing but a garbage bag full of clothes and a social worker's half-hearted good luck. About the diner, the apartment, the endless cycle of barely making rent and knowing that one bad month would put me on the street. I don't know why I told him all of it. Maybe because he listened like every word mattered. Maybe because the wine had loosened my tongue. Maybe because some desperate part of me wanted him to understand exactly how different our worlds were. Wanted him to see me and choose to walk away before this went any further, but he didn't walk away. "You're alone," he said again, like he had in the car yesterday. "No family, no friends. I have friends." It was a lie. I had coworkers, acquaintances, people who knew my name. But friends? Real friends? No, don't lie to me, Elena. His voice had gone cold. "I can tell when you're lying. Your left eye twitches." I touched my face reflexively. Did it? Had I really just revealed a tell to someone who looked at me like I was a puzzle to solve? "Why do you care?" I asked. "About any of this?" "About me." He was quiet for a long moment, studying me over the rim of his wine glass. When he spoke, his voice was softer than I'd heard it yet. "Because you're honest in a dishonest world. Because you called to return something you could have kept. Because when I look at you, I see something worth protecting. I don't need protection." "Yes," he said quietly. "You do. You just don't know it yet." The food came. It was incredible. Things I'd never tasted, couldn't even name. Dante watched me eat, barely touching his own plate, and I felt self-conscious under his gaze. Like I was performing somehow. "Tell me about you," I said, desperate to shift his attention elsewhere. "What do you do?" "Import and export." The answer was smooth, practiced. A lie. "That's not an answer." His lips curved into something that might have been a smile. "No, it's not. So what's the real answer?" "The real answer is complicated, and not appropriate dinner conversation for a first date." First date. Like there would be more. Like this was the beginning of something rather than a strange anomaly that would end when he got bored. "Are you married?" The question burst out before I could stop it. "No." "Girlfriend?" "No, why not?" I gestured vaguely at him. "You." "Because I haven't found anyone worth the complication. Until now." The words hung between us, heavy with implication. I took a long drink of wine, needing something to do with my hands. "I'm not worth complicating your life for," I said finally. "I'm a waitress who lives in a building that should be condemned. We live in different worlds. Then I'll bring you into mine." He said it so simply, like it was already decided. "You just have to let me. I don't even know you. You will." He reached across the table, and this time he did touch me, his fingers wrapping around my wrist. His touch was warm, firm, possessive. I'm a patient man, Elena, but I'm also a man who knows what he wants. And I want you. My pulse jumped under his fingers. I knew he could feel it. "Why?" I whispered. "Because you're real. Everything else in my life is performance, strategy, calculation. But you're just yourself. Do you know how rare that is?" I pulled my hand back, needing space, needing air. "This is crazy. We met yesterday. And yet here we are." The waiter brought dessert, something chocolate and decadent that I couldn't even appreciate because my head was spinning. Dante paid with a credit card that was black and heavy, the kind I'd heard about but never seen. We left, and Marco was waiting with the SUV, and suddenly we were driving through the city with Dante's arm along the back of the seat, not quite touching me but close enough that I felt the heat of him. "Where are we going?" I asked, when I realized we weren't heading toward my neighborhood. "My place. I want to show you something." Every warning bell in my head went off at once. I should go home. You should. But you won't. He turned to look at me, and in the dim light of the car, his eyes were almost black. Because you're curious, because you want to know what happens next. Because part of you, the part you try to ignore, wants exactly what I'm offering. Which is what? Everything. His penthouse occupied the entire top floor of a building that overlooked the city like a throne overlooking subjects. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed a glittering expanse of lights. The world stretched out below us like something we owned. The interior was all clean lines and expensive taste, dark wood, leather furniture, art on the walls that probably cost more than I'd make in a lifetime. But I barely noticed the decor. I noticed the men stationed at discrete intervals. One by the elevator, one near the hallway that led deeper into the apartment. Both wearing suits, both with the same watchful alertness as Marco. Both armed. I could see the subtle bulge under their jackets. "Wait in the living room," Dante told me, his hand on the small of my back, guiding me toward the windows. "I'll be right back." He disappeared down the hallway, leaving me alone in that vast space. I walked to the windows, my heels clicking on the marble floor, and pressed my palm against the glass, cold. Real. The city sprawled below, and I tried to find my neighborhood in the tangle of lights, tried to remember who I'd been 48 hours ago before a forgotten wallet had changed everything. A girl who couldn't afford heat, who wore shoes with holes, who was invisible to everyone except when they needed their coffee refilled. Now I stood in a penthouse, wearing a dress that cost more than my car, a diamond around my neck, looking at a view most people would never see. I should have felt like Cinderella. Instead, I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, waiting to fall. "Beautiful, isn't it?" I jumped. Dante had returned, silent as a cat despite his size. He'd removed his jacket, rolled up his shirt sleeves. I could see his forearms now, tanned, muscular, and marked. Tattoos. Dark ink that disappeared under the fabric, hints of words in a language I didn't recognize. "It's incredible," I said, because it was true. He came to stand beside me, close enough that our arms almost touched. "This could be yours, all of it." I laughed, a sharp sound that echoed in the space. "You don't even know me." "I know enough." He turned to face me fully, and the intensity in his gaze made my breath catch. "I know you're alone. I know you're struggling. I know you have nothing and no one. I could change that, Elena. I could give you everything. In exchange for what? You." Simple, direct, terrifying. I shook my head, taking a step back. People don't just give other people everything for nothing. What do you really want? His jaw tightened. For a moment, something dangerous flickered in his eyes. Then he smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "You think I have ulterior motives, don't you?" "Yes." At least he was honest. "Keep you. I want to own you. Make sure no one else can ever touch you or hurt you or take you away. I want you to be mine in every way that matters." The words should have sent me running, should have made me grab my awful jacket and get out of there as fast as my expensive new heels could carry me. But something in the way he said it, the raw honesty, the hunger barely leashed, made me freeze instead. "That's insane," I whispered. "I know." He moved closer, and I backed up until I hit the window, cold glass against my back. He braced one hand on the glass beside my head, caging me in without touching me. "I know it's insane. I know it's too fast, too much. But I don't care, Elena. From the moment I saw you standing outside that car, holding my wallet like it was some kind of test you'd passed, I knew." "Knew what?" "That you were mine." His face was inches from mine now. I could smell his cologne, feel the heat radiating from his body. My heart hammered so hard I thought it might break through my ribs. "I'm not a possession," I managed. "Aren't you?" His free hand came up, fingers ghosting along my jaw. I shivered. "You're wearing the dress I bought you, the shoes I chose, the necklace I gave you. You came here even though you knew you shouldn't. You're already mine, Elena. You just haven't admitted it yet." I should have pushed him away. Should have slapped him, screamed at him, done something other than stand there trembling while he looked at me like I was water and he was dying of thirst. "This is crazy," I said again, weaker this time. Yes. His thumb brushed over my lower lip, and my breath hitched. But you like it. The danger. The attention. Being wanted this completely by someone this powerful, don't you? I did. God help me, I did. He must have seen the answer in my face because he smiled. A real smile this time, victorious and dark. Then he stepped back, giving me space I no longer wanted. I'm not going to force you, he said, his voice rough. I could, easily, but I won't. You're going to come to me willingly, Elena. You're going to choose this. Choose me. Why would I do that? Because the alternative is going back to your falling apart apartment, your degrading job, your empty life. Because I'm offering you safety, security, everything you've never had. Because... He paused, something vulnerable flickering across his face. Because I'll take care of you in ways no one else ever has. I don't need taking care of. Everyone needs taking care of. He pulled out his phone, typed something quickly. Marco will take you home. Think about what I said. But Elena? He caught my chin, forcing me to meet his eyes. Don't take too long to decide. My patience has limits. The ride home was silent. Marco drove while I sat in the back, still smelling Dante's cologne on my skin, still feeling the ghost of his touch on my face. The diamond felt heavy around my neck. When we pulled up to my building, Marco opened my door. Miss Torres, Mr. Moretti wanted me to give you this. He handed me an envelope. Thick, expensive paper. Inside was $5,000 in cash and a note, for rent and anything else you need. You don't have to worry anymore. I stared at the money, my hands shaking. $5,000, more than I made in 3 months. Enough to pay rent for months, fix my car, buy groceries without counting every penny. All I had to do was accept it, accept him. I went upstairs in a daze, the envelope clutched in my hand. Inside my apartment, everything looked shabbier than before. The stained carpet, the leaking faucet I couldn't afford to fix, the radiator that barely worked. 48 hours ago, this had been my life. Now it felt like a prison I'd somehow forgotten I was living in. I set the money on the table next to the $100 bill from yesterday. Was it really only yesterday? And stared at it for a long time. Then I did something stupid. I called him. He answered on the first ring. Elena. The money. I can't. You can. You will. Consider it a gift. Gifts come with strings attached. Not this one. Whether you choose me or not, that money is yours. I don't want you evicted because you did the right thing by returning my wallet. The kindness in his voice was somehow worse than the possession. I could resist possession. Kindness was harder. Why are you doing this? I asked, my voice breaking. I told you. Because you're worth protecting, even if you're protecting yourself from me. I don't understand you. You will. Give it time. A pause. Did you like the lingerie? Heat flooded my face. That was inappropriate. That's not what I asked. I closed my eyes. Yes. Good. Wear it tomorrow. I'm taking you shopping. Dante, 10 a.m. Marco will pick you up. Wear something comfortable. We have a lot to do. I have to work. Call in sick. I can't just... Elena, that voice again. Soft and absolute. Call in sick. I'll replace whatever wages you lose. This isn't a request. I should have told him no. Should have told him he couldn't just command my life like I was one of his guards or subordinates or whatever those armed men in his penthouse were. But I didn't. Okay, I whispered. Good girl. The approval in his voice made something warm unfurl in my stomach. 10 a.m. Don't make me wait. He hung up. I sat there in my terrible apartment, surrounded by money I hadn't earned, wearing a dress I couldn't afford, a diamond around my neck that probably cost more than I'd make in a year. 3 days ago, I'd been invisible. Now I was seen, wanted, owned. And the worst part? I was starting to like it. I fell asleep on my bed fully dressed, too tired and confused to change, and dreamed of dark eyes and dangerous promises, and the feeling of being caged by someone who looked at me like I was the only thing in the world worth having. When I woke up, my phone showed 3 missed calls from Brenda at the diner. I called her back. I'm sick, I lied. I can't come in today. You sound fine to me. Food poisoning. I'll be back tomorrow. I hung up before she could argue. Then I looked at the dress pooled around my body, the shoes kicked off beside the bed, the money on the table. I'd made my choice. I just hadn't admitted it yet. At exactly 10 a.m., I was waiting downstairs when the SUV arrived. The shopping trip was surreal. Dante took me to stores I'd only ever seen from the outside, places where security guards watched you enter like they were deciding whether you belonged. But with him beside me, his hand possessive on the small of my back, his presence commanding every room we entered, doors opened like magic. Sales associates appeared instantly, offering champagne and smiles that were actually genuine instead of the plastic customer service masks I knew so well from the diner. He bought me everything. Dresses, shoes, coats that felt like wearing clouds. Lingerie that made me blush just looking at it while he watched with dark, hungry eyes. Jeans that actually fit, sweaters soft as sin, a winter coat that would actually keep me warm. You don't have to do this, I said for the 100th time as a saleswoman wrapped tissue paper around another purchase. I know. He didn't look away from the rack of dresses he was examining. But I'm going to anyway. You need clothes. I have money. Simple. Nothing about this is simple. He turned to me then, and something in his expression made my breath catch. No, it's not. But it could be, Elena, if you stopped fighting it. Fighting what? This. Us. He stepped closer, and even surrounded by racks of expensive clothes and hovering salespeople, the world seemed to narrow to just the two of us. The fact that you're mine now, whether you've accepted it or not. You can't just claim people. I can. His voice dropped lower. I do. And I'm claiming you. Before I could respond, his phone rang. He glanced at it, and something shifted in his face, the mask sliding into place, the businessman replacing the man who'd just been looking at me like I was his favorite possession. I need to take this. He answered in rapid Italian, his voice sharp and commanding. I caught a few words: money, shipment, problem, before he walked away, leaving me standing among thousands of dollars of clothes I hadn't asked for. The saleswoman smiled at me. He's very generous with you. He barely knows me. Men like that. She glanced toward where Dante stood, phone pressed to his ear, his whole body radiating controlled violence. They don't do anything halfway. When they want something, they take it. You're lucky he wants to take care of you instead of... She stopped herself, the smile faltering. Instead of what? Nothing. Let me show you these shoes. But I'd heard the unspoken ending. Instead of destroy you. We left the store with more bags than I could carry. Marco materialized from wherever he'd been waiting to take them to the car. Dante's hand found my waist again, and he guided me down the street like he owned the sidewalk, the buildings, the very air we breathed. Maybe he did. Lunch? He said. Not a question. Never a question with him. He took me to a small Italian restaurant tucked away on a side street, not fancy like the place we'd gone for dinner, but intimate. The owner greeted Dante like family, kissing both his cheeks and speaking rapid Italian that made Dante laugh, actually laugh. The sound rich and genuine, and so different from his usual controlled tone that it stopped me in my tracks. They spoke for a few minutes, the old man's eyes drifting to me with open curiosity, and something that might have been approval. Then Dante's hand was on my back again, guiding me to a private table in the corner where we could see the whole restaurant, but no one could easily see us. He thinks you're beautiful, Dante said once we were seated. He also thinks I don't deserve you. He's right. Probably. He poured wine from a bottle the owner had brought without being asked. But I'm keeping you anyway. We ate pasta that tasted like someone's grandmother had made it with love and time and ingredients I couldn't begin to name. Dante told me about this place, how he'd come here as a kid with his father. Before, he stopped himself. Before what? I asked. Before everything changed. His expression closed off. Eat. You're too thin. I'm not. You are. I can see your collarbone. When was the last time you ate a full meal that didn't come from the diner? I couldn't remember. I eat fine. You starve yourself because you can't afford food. That ends now. He said it with such finality, like he could simply decree my poverty out of existence. From now on, you eat properly. You sleep in a bed that doesn't have a broken spring. You live somewhere with heat that actually works. I can't afford... I can. He leaned forward, and his eyes were intense. Let me take care of you, Elena. Stop fighting me on this. Why do you even want to? You could have anyone. Models, actresses, women from your world who understand. I don't want them. I want you. He said it so simply, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. The way you look at me like I'm dangerous. The way you're terrified but still here. The way you try so hard to maintain your pride even when you're drowning. I want all of it. All of you. You don't know me well enough to want all of me. Then let me get to know you. His hand crossed the table, covering mine. His palm was warm, calloused. Move in with me. I nearly choked on my wine. What? Move in with me. Tonight, I'll have your things packed and moved before dinner. That's insane. We met 4 days ago. 3 days, and I don't care. I want you in my home, in my bed, where I can see you. Keep you safe. Make sure you have everything you need. I'm not a pet. You can just... No, you're so much more than that. His grip on my hand tightened. You're mine, Elena, and I protect what's mine. From what? I'm a waitress. I don't have enemies or people after me, or you do now. His voice went cold. The moment you were seen with me, you became a target. Anyone who wants to hurt me will look at you and see opportunity. Weakness, leverage. Fear, cold and sharp, sliced through me. Then maybe I shouldn't be seen with you. Too late for that. He pulled out his phone, showed me a photo. It was from last night, us leaving the restaurant, his hand on my back, me in the dress he'd bought. We looked like a couple. We looked like I belonged to him. This was taken by someone who works for people I'd prefer not to know about you. But they know now, which means you need protection, my protection. I stared at the photo, at the way he was looking at me in it. Possessive, proud, like I was a treasure he'd found. What exactly do you do, Dante? Things that keep people safe, things that solve problems, things that sometimes require methods the law doesn't approve of. You're a criminal. I'm a businessman who operates outside certain legal frameworks. Yes, the Mafia. I said it quietly, but he heard. That word has certain connotations that aren't entirely accurate, but... He shrugged. Close enough. I should have stood up. Should have walked out. Should have run as fast and as far as I could from this beautiful, dangerous man who'd just casually admitted he was exactly what every rational part of my brain had been screaming he was from the beginning. But I didn't run. If I say no, I asked instead, to moving in, to all of this, then I'll have Marco follow you everywhere to make sure you're safe. I'll pay your rent so you don't get evicted. I'll make sure the diner gives you the best shifts and the best tips. I'll be in your life whether you want me there or not, Elena, because the alternative, you getting hurt because of me, isn't something I can live with. That's not a choice. That's an ultimatum. Yes. He didn't apologize for it. Move in with me. Let me keep you safe. Let me give you everything you've never had. Or spend your life looking over your shoulder, waiting for someone to use you to get to me. You're manipulating me. I'm being honest with you. He stood, pulling me up with him. I could lie. I could pretend I'm a regular businessman, that there's no danger, that you can just go back to your normal life and we'll date like normal people. But you're not stupid, Elena. You knew what I was the moment you got in my car. You felt it, and you're still here. He was right. I had known. Some part of me had recognized the danger in him from the very first moment. Had seen it in the way people looked at him, the way his guards moved, the way he commanded every space he entered, and I'd stayed anyway. I need to think, I said. You have until tonight. He guided me toward the door, his hand never leaving my back. But Elena, while you're thinking, ask yourself something. When was the last time anyone cared whether you lived or died? When was the last time anyone wanted to protect you, keep you safe, make sure you had everything you needed? Never. The answer was never. Tonight, he repeated. 6 p.m. Marco will come for your answer. If it's yes, if it's no, help you pack. His jaw tightened. Then I'll respect it. But the protection stays either way. He kissed my forehead, a gesture so gentle it made my chest ache, and put me in the SUV. I watched him through the tinted window as Marco pulled away from the curb. He stood there on the sidewalk, hands in his pockets, watching us go. Even from a distance, even through the dark glass, I could feel the weight of his gaze. Marco drove me home in silence. When we arrived at my building, he helped me carry all the shopping bags upstairs, A ridiculous number of bags, all filled with things I'd never have been able to afford on my own. "Miss Torres," he said, as he set the last bag down inside my door. "For what it's worth, Mr. Moretti is a good man. Dangerous, yes, but good. He'll take care of you, better than anyone else ever could. How long have you worked for him?" 15 years. Since he was just a boy trying to survive his father's world. Something like respect softened Marco's usually stern expression. "He's never brought a woman home before. Never bought one clothes or jewelry. Never looked at anyone the way he looks at you." "What way is that?" "Like he'd burn the world down if it meant keeping you safe." He left before I could respond. I stood in my apartment surrounded by evidence of Dante's claim on me. The dresses, the shoes, the coat, the necklace still around my neck that I hadn't taken off since he'd fastened it there. The $5,000 on my table. The memory of his hands on my skin, his voice commanding me, his eyes seeing everything I tried to hide. I walked to my window and looked out at the city. Somewhere out there, he was in his penthouse, waiting for my answer, probably watching the clock, probably already certain he knew what I'd say. Because he was right. I did know what I was going to say. I'd known since the moment he'd caged me against the window and told me I was his. Maybe I'd known since I'd gotten in his car with my broken shoes and my two big eyes, and handed him his wallet like a good girl. At 5:45 p.m., I packed everything I owned into 2 garbage bags, the same ones I'd arrived in foster care with, the same ones I'd left with. My whole life fit into 2 bags. It should have been depressing. Instead, it felt like freedom. At 5:58 p.m., my phone rang. "Yes," I said before he could speak. Silence. Then, "Say it properly." I closed my eyes. "Yes, Dante, I'll move in with you. Good girl." The satisfaction in his voice was palpable. "Marco's on his way." "I know. I'm ready." "Are you?" Something shifted in his tone. "Because once you do this, Elena, once you come to me, there's no going back. You'll be mine. Completely. Do you understand what that means?" "I think so." "No, you don't. Not yet. But you will." A pause. "I'll make you happy that, even if I have to lock you away from the whole world to do it." The threat wrapped in the promise should have scared me. It didn't. "I'm not afraid of you," I lied. He laughed, low and dark. "Yes, you are, but you're more afraid of going back to being alone, of being invisible, of having nothing and no one. I'm offering you everything, and you're smart enough to take it." He was right. About all of it. Marco arrived at 6 p.m. exactly. He helped me carry my pathetic bags down to the SUV. I didn't look back at the building, at the apartment that had been my prison for 3 years. I left the keys on the kitchen counter and walked away from my old life like it had never existed. The penthouse was different at night, warmer, more intimate. Dante was waiting when the elevator opened directly into his foyer. He'd changed into dark jeans and a black t-shirt that showed off the tattoos on his arms, full sleeves of intricate ink that I wanted to trace with my fingers. He looked at my garbage bags, and something painful crossed his face. "Never again," he said quietly. "You'll never have to live like that again." He led me to a bedroom. Not his, I realized. A guest room. Beautiful and spacious and completely impersonal. He set my bags down. "This is yours. Your space. You can decorate it however you want. Change anything, make it home." He turned to face me. "My room is down the hall. You're welcome there any time, but I won't push. Not yet." "Thank you. Don't thank me." He cupped my face, his thumb brushing my cheekbone. "This is selfish, Elena. All of this. I'm not doing it to be kind. I'm doing it because I can't stand the thought of you anywhere else but here. With me, where I can see you, touch you, know you're safe." "I know. Do you?" His eyes searched mine. "Do you understand that I'm obsessed with you? That I've thought about nothing but you for 3 days? That I've had men watching you every second to make sure you were safe even before you agreed to this?" I should have been horrified, should have felt violated. Instead, I felt cherished. "I understand," I whispered. He kissed me then. Finally. After days of almost touches and heated looks and commands that made my stomach flip, his mouth was demanding, possessive. claiming me in a way that left no room for doubt about who I belonged to now. When he pulled back, we were both breathing hard. "Welcome home, Elena," he said against my lips, and for the first time in my life, I felt like I actually had one. Over the following weeks, my life transformed completely. I quit the diner, Dante insisted, and I didn't fight him. He gave me a credit card with no limit and told me to buy whatever I wanted. He filled my closet with clothes, my days with safety, my nights with his presence. He was possessive, jealous, overwhelming. When men looked at me, his hand would tighten on my waist. When I went anywhere, Marco or one of the other guards went with me. He tracked my phone, knew where I was every second, called me multiple times a day just to hear my voice. It should have felt like a cage. It felt like being valued. He told me about his world slowly. The family business he'd inherited too young, the violence he'd seen, the empire he'd built. He showed me the scars on his body, the tattoos that told stories of loss and survival. He let me see behind the mask, and what I found there was a man who'd been alone as long as I had, who'd learned to trust no one, who'd built walls so high he'd forgotten what it felt like to let someone in. Until me. 6 months after I moved in, he asked me to marry him, not on one knee with a romantic speech, but in bed at 3 a.m, his arms around me, his voice rough with something that might have been fear. "Marry me. Make it official. Let me give you my name, my protection, everything I have." I said yes before he finished asking. We married in a small ceremony with just Marco and a few of his most trusted men as witnesses. He slid a ring on my finger, platinum and diamonds that caught the light like captured stars, and kissed me like he was branding me as his. And I was. His. Completely. The girl who'd returned a wallet to a stranger was gone. In her place was a woman who'd learned that sometimes the most dangerous thing you could do was let yourself be saved, that sometimes protection felt like possession, because the two were inseparable. That sometimes love looked like obsession, because when you'd never had anything, having everything felt overwhelming. Dante Moretti had claimed me the moment I'd called to return his wallet. He'd seen something in me, something worth keeping, worth protecting, worth owning. And I'd let him. Because being his was better than being no one's. Because in his arms, I was finally visible. Because he'd promised me everything, and he'd kept that promise, even if everything came with a price. Even if that price was my freedom. Even if I'd never be able to leave, I didn't want to. I was home.